The warning lights flashed red across every screen on Halo's Edge station. Something big was coming. Something impossible. Commander Thelvax stood in the control room, his 4 eyes focused on the main display. He was Velkari, one of the species that ruled the galaxy now. His scales were dark blue, a sign of his high rank. He had worked on this station for 20 years. Nothing surprised him anymore until today. "Commander, the gravity readings are wrong," said his assistant, a young Velkari named Shen. "The sensors say there's something massive at the edge of the system, but there's nothing there." Thelvax waved one of his 3 arms. "Check the equipment." "It's probably broken again. This station is old." But Shen's face showed fear. "Sir, I already checked. 3 times. The sensors are working fine. Whatever is out there, it's bending space itself." Before Thelvax could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. On every screen they watched as reality split apart. A hole appeared in the darkness, glowing with blue light. And through that hole something emerged. A ship, but not just any ship. This vessel was enormous, stretching 3 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was black as midnight, smooth and angular. Blue energy pulsed through lines across its surface like veins carrying light instead of blood. The design was strange, aggressive, and somehow familiar. Thelvax felt his blood run cold. He knew this design. Every child in the galaxy learned about it in history class. Ships like this hadn't been seen in 300 years. "Humans," he whispered. The control room erupted into chaos. Officers shouted. Alarms rang. Some of the younger workers didn't understand. They thought humans were just stories, myths told to scare children. But the older ones knew better. They remembered the tales their grandparents told. Stories of the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. The human ship sat there in space, not hiding, not running. It simply waited, as if daring anyone to challenge it. Then every communication channel on the station crackled to life. A voice spoke, clear and strong, in perfect galactic common. "This is Captain Han Jiwoo, of the Human Sovereignty naval ship Indomitable. We have returned." Inside the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Han Jiwoo stood with his hands behind his back. He was 42 years old, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples. His uniform was simple but clean, dark blue with silver trim. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were sharp and alert. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the hum of the engines. Everything was precise, controlled, professional. "Captain, we're receiving multiple responses," said First Officer Kang Mirai. She was 35, tall and thin with short black hair. Her fingers moved across her control panel with practiced ease. "Most of them sound confused. Some sound angry. A few sound scared. As expected," Jiwoo replied calmly. "They thought we were dead. Gone forever. Now we're back and they don't know what to think." Mirai allowed herself a small smile. "Station Command is demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions. They sound very official about it. Tell them we mean no harm. We're here to talk, nothing more." But even as the words left his mouth, new contacts appeared on the sensors. 3 Velkari heavy cruisers were approaching fast, their weapons already charging. Chief Engineer Yoon Daehyun's gruff voice came over the internal comm. "Captain, those Velkari ships are getting ready to fight." "I'm reading weapons lock. They're targeting us." Daehyun was 50 years old, with gray hair and rough hands from years of working with machines. He treated the Indomitable like it was his own child. Right now, someone was threatening his child. Jiwoo watched the 3 enemy ships close in. Each one was big, heavily armed, and clearly meant for war. Against most opponents, even one of these cruisers would be a serious threat. But the Indomitable was not most ships. "Open a channel to those cruisers," Jiwoo ordered. The face of a Valkyrie commander appeared on the main screen. His scales were red with anger, and all 4 of his eyes glared at Jiwoo with hatred. "Human ship, you have entered hegemony space without permission. Power down your weapons and surrender immediately or we will destroy you." Jiwoo kept his voice calm and steady. "Commander, we have no wish to fight. We're here to establish communication and peaceful relations. Please stand down." The Valkyrie commander laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Peaceful? Humans don't know the meaning of peace. You are a disease that was purged from this galaxy 300 years ago. We will not let you return." The transmission cut off. On the sensors, all 3 cruisers locked their weapons on the Indomitable. Mirai looked at Jiwoo. "Captain?" Jiwoo sighed. 300 years of absence, and this was the welcome they received. He had hoped for better. but he had prepared for worse. Humanity had learned many lessons during their long exile. One of those lessons was simple: hope for peace, but be ready for war. They've made their choice, Jiwoo said quietly. He looked around at his crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. They were the best humanity had to offer, and now they would show the galaxy what humans had become. All stations, Jiwoo's voice rang out clear and strong. Protocol thunderclap. Let them remember what we were. The bridge crew moved with perfect coordination. Hands flew across controls. Status reports came in rapid succession. The Indomitable came alive, every system activating at once. On Halo's Edge station, Thelvax watched his sensors in disbelief. The human ship's power output had just increased by 300%. But impossibly, the ship showed no signs of strain. It was as if the Indomitable had been running on almost nothing before, and now it was waking up. What are they doing? Shen asked, his voice shaking. Thelvax couldn't answer. He could only watch as the 3 Valkyrie cruisers opened fire. Missiles streaked through space. Plasma bolts bright as small suns flew toward the human vessel. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Indomitable didn't even try to dodge, instead its hull shimmered. Thousands of tiny laser emitters activated across the ship's surface, creating a grid of light. Every single missile was destroyed before impact. Every plasma bolt was intercepted and dissipated. The defense system was so fast, so precise, that most sensors barely registered it working. On the bridge, Tactical Officer Lee Hyunwoo reported in a calm voice. All incoming fire neutralized, Captain. Point defense operating at 18% capacity. Targets locked. Hyunwoo was only 29, the youngest officer on the bridge, but his talent for tactics was legendary. He had planned this engagement down to the smallest detail. Jiwoo nodded once. Fire! The Indomitable's railguns spoke. Not with sound, because there is no sound in space, but with violence. Solid metal slugs, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to 30% of light speed. At that velocity, shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. Physics became a weapon. 2 of the Valkyrie cruisers were crippled in less than 3 seconds. Their engines exploded. Their hulls cracked open like eggs. The 3rd cruiser managed to turn and run, fleeing at maximum speed. The entire battle had lasted less than 10 seconds. On Halo's Edge station, silence filled the control room. Every worker stared at their screens in shock. The Valkyrie hegemony had ruled this galaxy for 300 years. Their military was the most powerful force in known space, and 3 of their best warships had just been destroyed by one human vessel, almost casually. Thelvax felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. Real, deep, ancient fear. The humans were back, and they were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within hours, every major government knew about the human ship. Within a day, the entire galaxy was talking about it. In the government halls of the Valkyrie hegemony, panic spread like fire. The High Council gathered for an emergency meeting. 7 species made up the hegemony, and all of them were afraid. Grand Admiral Krelok stood before the council. He was old for a Valkyrie. His scales faded to a dull gray, but his eyes still burned with pride and anger. He had fought in the last war against humanity, 300 years ago. He remembered what they were capable of. 1 ship, he said, his voice filling the chamber. 1 ship defeated 3 of our cruisers in seconds. This cannot stand. If we show weakness now, the entire galaxy will question our authority. One of the council members, a being made of living crystal, spoke up. What do you propose, Admiral? That we attack them with everything we have? That ship destroyed our vessels without even trying. How many ships will we lose if we go to war? Krelok slammed his fist on the table. I propose we remind them why they left in the first place. I will take the Grand Fleet to their location. 50 warships. The human vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against those numbers. The council argued for hours, but in the end fear won. They authorized Krelox to take the fleet and destroy the human ship. They wanted to send a message to the galaxy. The hegemony was still in control. On the Indomitable, Captain Jiwoo knew the fleet was coming. His sensors could detect ships jumping through hyperspace from systems away. He called his senior officers to the conference room. The room was small and simple. A table, some chairs, and a large screen on the wall. Mirai sat to Jiwoo's right, her face calm but focused. Chief Engineer Daehyun stood near the back. arms crossed over his chest. Dr. Park Yoonji, the ship's science officer, sat across from them. She was 38 with kind eyes and a gentle manner. "They're sending everything they have," Jiwoo said, pulling up a star map on the screen. 50 capital ships will arrive in approximately 6 hours. Daehyun snorted. "Let them come. We've got enough firepower to handle 50 ships, or 100. "That's not the point," Yoonji said softly. "If we destroy their entire fleet, we start a war. A real war across the whole galaxy. Is that what we want?" Jiwoo nodded. "Dr. Park is right. Our mission isn't to conquer. It's to return. To show the galaxy that humanity deserves a place among the stars again. We can't do that if we're killing everyone who stands in our way." "So what do we do?" Mirai asked. "Let them shoot at us and hope they run out of ammunition?" Jiwoo smiled slightly. "We do something they won't expect. We make them afraid without firing a shot." 6 hours later, the Grand Fleet arrived. 50 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding the Indomitable on all sides. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons, and crewed by hundreds of trained warriors. Admiral Krelok sat on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance. He looked at the human ship on his screen. It looked so small compared to his fleet, so alone. He almost felt sorry for them. "Almost human vessel," he broadcast. "You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender your ship immediately or we will destroy you." There was a long pause. Then Jiwoo's voice came back, calm as still water. "Admiral Krelok's. I know who you are. You fought in the old wars. You remember what humans are capable of. Are you really willing to test that memory?" Krelok felt a chill run down his spine. How did this human know his name? How did he know his history? He pushed the fear away and hardened his voice. Big words from a lone ship. "You have 30 seconds to comply or we open fire." On the Indomitable's bridge, Tactical Officer Lee Hyunwoo was ready. His fingers moved across his controls, preparing the sequence they had practiced 100 times. "Captain, Protocol Ghost is ready," he reported. Jiwoo nodded. "Execute." The Indomitable vanished. Not really vanished, but to the Velkari sensors it looked that way. The ship made a micro-jump. Traveling just a few thousand kilometers in an instant, it reappeared on the other side of the fleet. Then it jumped again. And again, and again. Each jump left behind a sensor echo, a ghost image that looked like a real ship. Within minutes, the Velkari fleet was seeing dozens of human ships on their screens, all of them moving, all of them appearing and disappearing. "Which one is real?" Krelok shouted at his sensor officer. "Which one do we shoot?" The officer's hand shook as he worked his controls. "I don't know, sir." "They all look real. The signatures are identical." Panic spread through the Velkari fleet. Ships started firing at the ghost images, wasting ammunition on shadows. Some ships accidentally fired close to their own allies, causing confusion and anger. The perfect formation broke apart as captains tried to track targets that weren't really there. Inside the Indomitable, Hyunwoo worked with the precision of an artist. Each jump was calculated perfectly, designed to cause maximum confusion with minimum effort. He made the single human ship appear like an entire fleet. "Captain, their formation is breaking," Mirai reported. 3 ships have already collided with each other trying to maneuver. "No casualties, but they're in chaos." Jiwoo watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Good, now Phase 2. Open a broadcast to every ship in their fleet. Make sure every crew member can hear it." His voice went out across all channels, reaching thousands of Velkari and their allies. "Warriors of the hegemony, hear me. I'm Captain Han Jiwoo. 300 years ago, humanity left this galaxy. We left because we were tired of war. Tired of death. We left to find peace and to become better than we were." The Indomitable made another jump, appearing directly above Krelok's flagship, close enough that the Admiral could see every detail of the human ship on his screens. "We succeeded," Jiwoo continued. "We built a new civilization. We developed new technologies. We learned new ways of thinking. And now we have returned not as conquerors but as equals. We ask only for the right to exist alongside you." Another jump. This time the Indomitable appeared in the center of the fleet, equidistant from all the surrounding ships. But make no mistake, we left as warriors and we remain warriors. We will not be bullied. We will not be threatened. And we will not disappear quietly into the night again. If you force us to fight, we will fight, and you will lose. The Indomitable stopped jumping. It hung there in space, perfectly still, as if daring the entire fleet to attack. "The choice is yours, Admiral Krelok. Peace or war. Life or death. Choose wisely." On the Eternal Vengeance, Krelok stared at the human ship. His hand hovered over the fire control. One word from him and 50 ships would unleash everything they had. Surely even this advanced human vessel couldn't survive that. But doubt crept into his mind. What if it could? What if this was just one ship and humanity had more? What if attacking now would start a war the hegemony couldn't win? His communications officer suddenly spoke up. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the hegemony. Multiple governments are demanding we stand down. They say starting a war with the humans would be madness. The civilian populations are watching this on every news channel. If we attack now and lose, it will be the end of the hegemony." Krelok felt his dreams of glory crumbling. He had wanted to be remembered as the admiral who destroyed humanity's return. Instead, he was trapped. If he attacked and failed, he would be blamed for the hegemony's fall. If he retreated, he would be called a coward. But there was a third option, one that might save both his honor and his people. "Human captain," he broadcast. "You speak of peace, but you threaten us with your weapons. How can we trust you?" Jiwoo's response came quickly. "Trust is earned, Admiral, not given. We have shown you our strength. Now give us a chance to show you our honor. Stand down your fleet. Let us talk like civilized beings. If we cannot find common ground, you can always resume hostilities later." It made sense. It was logical. But more than that, it gave Krelok a way out that didn't involve humiliation or death. "Very well," the Admiral said slowly. "All ships, power down weapons. Maintain position, but do not engage. Let us see if these humans are as honorable as they claim." Across the fleet, weapons powered down. The standoff continued, but the immediate danger had passed. In the Indomitable's conference room, Dr. Yunji smiled with relief. "You did it, Captain. You avoided war." But Jiwoo's expression remained serious. "For now, Doctor, for now. The real test is just beginning." 3 days passed with no shots fired. The Indomitable and the Velkari fleet sat in an uneasy peace, neither side willing to make the first move. But tensions were rising. Dr. Park Yunji had an idea. She came to Captain Jiwoo's office late one evening carrying a datapad filled with research. "Captain, I think I found a way to break this deadlock," she said, setting the pad on his desk. "I've been studying the hegemony's structure. It's not as unified as they want everyone to believe. There are cracks in their alliance." Jiwoo looked up from his reports. He trusted Yunji's insight. She had studied alien cultures her entire life, preparing for this moment. "Explain." "The Lith," Yunji said, pulling up information on the screen. "They're one of the 7 species in the hegemony, but they joined through conquest, not choice. The Velkari invaded their worlds 200 years ago. Since then, the Lith have been treated as second-class citizens. I think they might be sympathetic to us." Jiwoo considered this carefully. "You want to make contact with them?" "Behind the Velkari's back?" "Not behind their backs. Quietly, through diplomatic channels. If we can show the hegemony that we're willing to work with individual species, to respect their independence, it might change everything." It was risky. If the Velkari found out, they might see it as proof that humans were trying to divide and conquer. But if it worked, it could be the breakthrough they needed. "Do it," Jiwoo decided. "But take Lieutenant Choi with you as security. And be careful." Lieutenant Choi So-min was 31 years old and one of the best special forces operatives in the human fleet. She was short but strong, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. When Yunji told her about the mission, So-min checked her weapons 3 times. "I don't trust them," So-min said bluntly as they prepared to leave. "The Velkari killed my parents when I was a child. During the last days before we left. I haven't forgotten." Yunji put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I know, I lost people too. We all did. But we can't let the past control us forever. We have to try." They took a small shuttle to a neutral moon between the 2 fleets. The Lith representatives were already waiting. There were 3 of them, tall and thin, with skin like polished wood, and eyes that glowed softly in the darkness. The lead Lith introduced herself as Speaker Valara. Her voice was musical, almost like singing. "Dr. Park, Lieutenant Choi, thank you for meeting with us. This took great courage." "Thank you for responding to our message," Yunji replied. "We hoped there might be those in the hegemony who would listen with open minds." Valara gestured for them to sit. The meeting room was simple, carved from the moon's rock. "Open minds are dangerous things in the hegemony. The Velkari do not appreciate independent thought. But we remember our history. We remember being free." "Then you understand why we're here," Yunji said. "We want to return to the galaxy, but not as conquerors. We want all species to have the right to choose their own paths. Valara's eyes dimmed slightly, a sign of sadness in lithe body language. Beautiful words. But the Velkari will never allow it. They see you as a threat to their power. And they're planning something terrible. Soman leaned forward. What are they planning? They have a weapon, Valara said quietly. Something banned by galactic law for over a century. A quantum destabilizer. It can tear apart the very fabric of space, destroying anything in its path. They plan to use it on your ship? Yunji felt her blood run cold. When? Soon. Admiral Krelox is under pressure from the High Council. They want results. They want you gone no matter the cost. Back on the Indomitable, Jiwoo called an emergency meeting. All senior officers gathered in the conference room. The mood was grim. A quantum destabilizer, Chief Engineer Daehyun said, rubbing his face with his hands. Those things are insane. They don't just destroy the target. They damage space itself. It could take years for the area to become safe again. First Officer Mirai looked at Jiwoo. Captain, we need to act. If they're willing to use that weapon, talking won't stop them. We should strike first. Take out their flagship before they can fire. That would prove we're the threat they think we are, Yunji argued. There has to be another way. Daehyun shook his head. Sometimes there is no other way, Doctor. Sometimes you have to choose between being right and being alive. Enough, Jiwoo said firmly. Everyone fell silent. We're not going to attack first. But we're not going to run either. Mirai frowned. Then what do we do? Jiwoo stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. We call their bluff. We stay here. We broadcast everything to the entire galaxy. Every moment, every second. If they use that weapon, the whole galaxy will see it. They'll be exposed as monsters willing to break their own laws. And if that doesn't stop them, Tactical Officer Lee Hyunwoo asked quietly. If they fire anyway? Jiwoo turned back to face his officers. Then we survive. Daehyun, I need you to modify our shields. Quantum weapons work by disrupting normal space, but our shields use technology the galaxy hasn't seen before. Can we adapt them to resist a quantum attack? Daehyun thought for a long moment. Maybe it would take all our power. We'd have no weapons, no engines, just shields. And even then, I can't guarantee it would work. How long do you need? 12 hours. Maybe less if I skip testing. Jiwoo nodded. You have 8 hours. After that, we broadcast our message to the galaxy. We tell everyone what the Velkari are planning. We make this moment matter. The next 8 hours were the longest of the crew's lives. Daehyun worked without sleep, his fingers flying over controls, making calculations that would have taken normal computers hours to complete. All across the ship, crew members prepared for what might be their final battle. Soman checked her weapons again. If the ship was destroyed, she wanted to go down fighting. Yunji wrote letters to her family back home just in case. Hyunwoo ran combat simulations over and over looking for any advantage. Mirai maintained her calm exterior, but inside she was terrified. Jiwoo spent those hours walking the ship, talking to his crew. He wanted them to know that he saw them, that he valued them, that their lives mattered to him. Some were young, barely out of training. Others were veterans who had served for decades. All of them had volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. When the 8 hours were up, Daehyun reported to the bridge. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but he managed a tired smile. It's done, Captain. The shield modifications are complete. If they fire that weapon at us, we've got maybe a 60% chance of survival. Those aren't great odds, but they're better than 0. 60% is good enough, Jiwoo said. Thank you, Daehyun. Now get some rest. That's an order. The engineer left and Jiwoo turned to Mirai. Open all broadcast channels. Every frequency, every network. I want the entire galaxy to hear this. When the channels were open, Jiwoo spoke. His voice was calm, steady, confident. People of the galaxy, this is Captain Han Jiwoo of the human ship Indomitable. For 3 days we have waited here peacefully, hoping to establish dialogue with the Velkari hegemony. But we have learned that they plan to use a banned weapon against us, a quantum destabilizer that violates every law of civilized warfare. He paused, letting the words sink in across billions of screens. We are not leaving. We will not run. We came here to reclaim our place in this galaxy, and we will stand our ground. If the hegemony chooses to use their illegal weapon, let the galaxy witness it. Let everyone see what kind of government rules over you. Let them see who the real monsters are. On the Eternal Vengeance, Admiral Krelox watched the broadcast with growing rage. This human captain had just made it impossible to use the weapon quietly. The entire galaxy was watching now. If he gave the order to fire, the hegemony would be condemned by every civilized species. But the High Council was demanding action. They didn't care about the galactic opinion. They wanted the humans gone. Krellox made his decision. He activated the quantum destabilizer. On the Indomitable, alarms screamed. Sensors detected the weapon charging, gathering terrible energy. The crew rushed to their stations. Daehyun activated the modified shields, channeling every bit of power the ship had into protection. Jiwoo sat in his captain's chair, his hands gripping the armrests. This was it, the moment that would define everything. The quantum destabilizer fired. A wave of impossible energy washed over the Indomitable. Space itself seemed to scream. The shields held for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The strain was incredible. Systems overloaded. Sparks flew from consoles. The lights flickered, and then, impossibly, the wave passed. The Indomitable was still there. Damaged, shields at 0, engines offline, but alive. More than that, the quantum wave had reflected back. Weakened, but still deadly. 5 Velkari ships that had been too close to the blast were destroyed by their own weapon. Across the galaxy, billions watched in shock. The hegemony had just used a banned weapon, and the humans had survived. For a long moment, there was only silence. The Indomitable floated dead in space, its shields gone, its engines cold. Inside the ship, emergency lights cast everything in red. Smoke filled some corridors. Crew members worked frantically to restore power. On the bridge, Captain Jiwoo pulled himself up from where the blast had thrown him. His head was bleeding, but he ignored it. "Status report!" Mirai's console was sparking, but she kept working. "Shields are completely gone. Main engines offline. Weapons offline. We're dead in the water, Captain. Casualties? Minor injuries across all decks, no deaths. We got lucky." Daehyun's voice came over the comm, rough but alive. "Captain, the shields held just long enough. But we can't take another hit like that. If they fire again, we're done." Jiwoo looked at the main screen. The Velkari fleet was still there, still surrounding them. Admiral Krellox could finish them off easily now. They had no defenses left. But then something changed on the sensors. New contacts were appearing, big ones, and they were human. "Captain," Hyunwoo said, his voice filled with wonder, "you need to see this." Space tore open in 12 different places. Jump signatures, massive ones, unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Through each tier came a human warship, destroyers, cruisers, and one ship that dwarfed even the Indomitable, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons. The human fleet had arrived. On the eternal vengeance. Admiral Krellox felt his blood turn to ice. He had thought the Indomitable was alone. That belief had just been shattered. The humans had tricked him, had used their lone ship as bait while hiding an entire fleet nearby. A new voice came over all communication channels. It was strong, commanding, with the weight of authority behind it. "This is Admiral Kim Tae-jun of the Human Sovereignty Naval Forces. The human fleet has arrived. All hegemony vessels will power down weapons and maintain position. Any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force." Admiral Kim was 67 years old, with white hair and a face lined by decades of command. He had survived the old wars as a young officer. He had watched humanity's empire burn, and he had spent 300 years building a new one, preparing for this exact moment. On the Indomitable, Jiwoo allowed himself a small smile. "Right on time, Admiral." Mirai looked at him in surprise. "You knew they were coming?" "They were always coming. We were never alone, Mirai. The Indomitable was just the first move in a much larger game." The tactical situation had changed completely. The Velkari fleet was now outnumbered and outgunned. The human ships formed a protective sphere around the damaged Indomitable, their weapons tracking every hegemony vessel. But Admiral Krellox was not ready to surrender. He was old, proud, and desperate. A desperate enemy is the most dangerous kind. "All ships target the human dreadnought," he ordered. "If we can destroy their flagship, we can still win this." But then his communications officer interrupted. "Sir, we have a problem." "A big problem. What now?" "Halo's Edge Station. Someone has taken control of it. They're threatening to destroy the entire structure if we don't withdraw." Krellox didn't understand. Who would do that?" "It's not the humans, sir, it's us. One of our own captains has gone rogue. Captain Thalrin. He's locked himself in the station's command center with 40,000 civilians as hostages. The situation had just become much worse. Captain Thalrin was known to be a fanatic, someone who believed the hegemony should rule through fear and strength. Apparently, he had decided that if they couldn't defeat the humans in battle, he would force them to leave by threatening innocent lives. Jiwoo received the news moments later. His expression darkened. "Get me a channel to Admiral Kim, now." When the connection was established, both human officers could see the worry in each other's eyes. "Admiral, are you seeing this?" Jiwoo asked. "I am. 40,000 civilians. This changes everything. We have to save them, sir. If we let those people die, everything we've said about being different, about being better, it all means nothing." Admiral Kim nodded slowly. "I agree, but how? Our special forces could storm the station, but civilians would die. Possibly thousands of them. Is that acceptable?" Before Jiwoo could answer, Dr. Yoonji spoke up from her station. "Captain, request permission to contact Captain Thalren directly." Jiwoo turned to her. "Yoonji, this man is a fanatic. He won't listen to reason. Maybe not to reason, but perhaps to his conscience. Let me try, please." Admiral Kim considered for a moment. "Let her try, Captain. We lose nothing by talking, and we might save 40,000 lives." A channel was opened to the station. Captain Thalren's face appeared on the screen. He was young for a ship captain, with bright red scales and eyes that burned with fanatical belief. "Humans." He spat the word like a curse. "You should have stayed gone. You don't belong here anymore." Yoonji kept her voice calm and gentle. "Captain Thalren, my name is Dr. Park Yoonji. I'm a scientist, not a warrior. I want to understand why you're doing this." "Why?" "Because the hegemony is weak. We should have destroyed your ship immediately. But our leaders hesitated. They showed mercy. And look what happened. Now we're surrounded by your fleet, humiliated in front of the entire galaxy." "So you decided to take hostages? To threaten innocent civilians?" "Captain, there are 40,000 people on that station. Men, women, children. From dozens of different species. What did they do to deserve death? They're casualties of war. Sometimes the innocent must suffer for the greater good." Yoonji shook her head sadly. "You know that's not true. You're a military officer. You took an oath to protect civilians, not murder them. What would your family think if they could see you now?" For just a moment, something flickered in Thalren's eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or shame. Yoonji pressed on gently. "Captain, listen to me. We humans left this galaxy 300 years ago because we were tired of making choices like the one you're facing now. We were tired of deciding who lives and who dies. We left to find a better way, and we did. We learned that real strength isn't about how many people you can kill, it's about how many you can save." "Pretty words," Thalren said, but his voice was less certain now. "They're not just words. Look at what just happened. Your admiral used a banned weapon on our ship. He killed 5 of his own vessels in the process. And we survived. We could destroy your entire fleet right now if we wanted to, but we haven't fired a single shot. Why? Because we value life, all life, even the lives of our enemies." Thalren's hands were shaking now. "If I release these hostages, I'll be executed for treason. My family will be shamed. My name will be forgotten. Or," Yoonji said softly, "you could be remembered as the officer who saved 40,000 lives, as someone who chose mercy over revenge, as the first Velkari to truly understand what we're trying to do here." Lieutenant Somin, watching from nearby, whispered to Jiwoo, "She's incredible. She's actually getting through to him." Jiwoo nodded. "That's why she's here. Some battles can't be won with weapons." On the screen, Thalren stood silent for a long time. Everyone watching could see the war being fought inside him. Pride versus conscience, duty versus morality, the old ways versus something new. Finally, he spoke. "If I do this, if I release them, will you guarantee my safety? And the safety of my crew?" Admiral Kim's voice came through. "You have my word, Captain. Surrender peacefully. Release the hostages and we will ensure you receive fair treatment." Thalren closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with tears. "I release the hostages. All of them. Station Command is opening the blast doors now, but Admiral Krellox will never forgive this. My career is over. Your career might be over," Yoonji said gently, "but your honor is intact. You chose life over death. That's something to be proud of." Across the Indomitable's bridge, crew members let out breaths they didn't know they'd been holding. 40,000 lives had been saved without a single shot fired. But the crisis wasn't over. Admiral Krellox was still in command of the Velkari fleet, and now he had just watched one of his officers betray him on live broadcast to the entire galaxy. His rage was about to boil over, and a rage-filled admiral commanding 50 warships was perhaps the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Admiral Krellox sat in his command chair, watching everything fall apart. The hostage situation had failed. Captain Thulren had surrendered. The entire galaxy had seen a human woman talk down a desperate Velkari officer with nothing but words. It made the hegemony look weak. It made him look weak. His communications officer approached carefully. "Sir, the High Council is demanding an update. They want to know what our next move is." Krellox didn't answer. He stared at the human fleet on his screens. 12 ships against his 50. But he knew the truth now. Those 12 ships were more advanced, better armed, and crewed by warriors who had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. If it came to battle, he would lose. The hegemony would lose. Everything they had built would crumble. But maybe there was another way. "Open a channel," he said quietly. "To Admiral Kim, just him and me. Private conversation." On the human dreadnought, Admiral Kim received the request with interest. "Put him through." The two old warriors faced each other across the void of space. They were similar in many ways. Both had fought in the old wars. Both had lost friends, family, entire worlds. Both carried the weight of command on tired shoulders. "Admiral Kim," Krellox began, "we are enemies. That much is clear. But we are also both military men. We understand the cost of war. So I will speak plainly. What do you want?" Kim appreciated the directness. "Peace, Admiral. Real peace. Not the kind built on fear and threats, but the kind built on mutual respect. We want our worlds back. We want the right to exist as equals in this galaxy, and we want the species under your rule to have the freedom to choose their own futures. That's a lot to ask for. We've earned it, Admiral. You know we have. The question is whether the hegemony is wise enough to accept reality or foolish enough to fight a war they cannot win." Krellox was silent for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. It was not a happy laugh, but one tinged with bitterness and acceptance. "You know what the worst part is? I respect you. I respect what you've done. 300 years ago, you could have fought to the last human. You could have dragged the entire galaxy down with you. But you chose to leave. To build something new. That takes more courage than any battle I've ever fought." Kim nodded slowly. "Then help us, Admiral. Help us show the galaxy that change is possible, that old enemies can become new allies. If I do this, the High Council will strip me of my rank. They might even execute me for treason. Or they might thank you for preventing a war that would have destroyed the hegemony. Sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is choose not to fight." Krellox made his decision. "Very well. I am ordering my fleet to stand down. All weapons will be powered down. We will withdraw to a neutral distance and await diplomatic negotiations. But Admiral, if this is a trick, if you betray this trust, I will spend my last breath hunting you down." "No tricks, Admiral. You have my word as an officer and as a human." The order went out. Across the Velkari fleet, weapons powered down. Ships began to pull back, creating space between themselves and the human vessels. For the first time in days, the tension began to ease. On the Indomitable, the crew erupted in cheers. They had done it. They had returned to the galaxy without starting a war. Jiwoo allowed himself to smile, but only for a moment. The real work was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on a neutral world called Haven. It was a beautiful planet, with blue oceans and green forests unclaimed by any species. Here in a specially built conference center, the future of the galaxy would be decided. Ambassador Shin Myung-hee led the human delegation. She was 55 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen decades of preparation for this moment. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times, but now that the moment had arrived, she set aside her notes and spoke from the heart. 300 years ago, humanity left this galaxy in shame and defeat. We were broken, scattered, dying. We could have given up. We could have faded away into history, becoming nothing more than a cautionary tale. But we didn't. We survived. We rebuilt. We learned. She looked around the room at all the different species gathered there. Some watched with suspicion, others with curiosity, a few with hope. We learned that strength without wisdom is just violence, that power without purpose is just tyranny, that winning battles doesn't matter if you lose yourself in the process. So we changed. We became better, not perfect but better, and now we've returned not to conquer but to contribute, not to rule but to participate. We ask only for the same right that every species in this galaxy should have. The right to exist. The right to grow. The right to be part of something larger than ourselves. The Velkari delegate, a younger officer named Telmara, stood to respond. She had been chosen specifically because she had no connection to the old wars. She represented a new generation. Ambassador Shin, your words are moving. But how can we trust you? How can we know you won't use your superior technology to dominate us once you're established? Myung-hee smiled. Because we don't want to dominate you. We want to learn from you, to trade with you, to grow alongside you, and to prove this, we're making an offer. Any species that wishes to study our technology, we will share it freely. Not weapons, but medical advances, engineering techniques, scientific discoveries. We want to lift everyone up, not hold them down. This caused a stir in the room. Free technology? It was unheard of. Species hoarded their advances, using them as leverage and power. But the humans were offering to give it away. Speaker Valara of the Lith stood next. The Lith Coalition wishes to speak in support of the human proposal. We have met with them. We have seen their character. They kept their word when they could have easily broken it. That is worth more than any technology. One by one, other species voiced their opinions. Some remained skeptical. Others were supportive. The debate lasted for hours, then days. But slowly, a consensus began to form. Meanwhile, on the Indomitable, repairs were almost complete. Chief Engineer Daehyun had worked miracles, getting the damaged ship back to 90% functionality. As he ran final diagnostics, he found himself thinking about the future. Lieutenant Somin found him in engineering, staring at a display screen. Chief, you should be sleeping. You've barely rested in weeks, Daehyun shrugged. I'll rest when I'm dead. Besides, I wanted to see her fully operational again. The Indomitable saved our lives more than once. She deserves the best care we can give her. Somin leaned against a console. Can I ask you something? That day when you wanted to attack first, to strike before they could use that weapon, do you still think we should have done that? Daehyun was quiet for a moment. You know, I thought the captain was being naive. Too idealistic. But I was wrong. He understood something I didn't. That sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones you fight, but the ones you choose not to. Yeah, we could have won by attacking first, but we would have lost something more important. What's that? The right to call ourselves better. To say we've changed. You can't build peace with violence, Somin. The captain knew that. I'm glad he didn't listen to me. Back on Haven, after 2 weeks of negotiations, an agreement was reached. The Galactic Coalition would be formed. A true alliance of equals where every species had a voice and a vote. Humanity would be given back their old territories, with the understanding that any species currently living there would be allowed to stay or leave as they chose. Technology would be shared. Trade routes would be opened. And, most importantly, a council would be established to prevent any single species from dominating the others. It wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements, still resentments, still fear. But it was a beginning. Captain Jiwoo stood with Dr. Yoonji watching the signing ceremony on a large screen. All around them, crew members celebrated quietly. We did it, Yoonji said softly. We actually did it. Humanity is home. Jiwoo nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. We've taken the first step, Yoonji. But the journey is far from over. Building peace is harder than winning wars. It takes constant effort, constant vigilance, constant hope. Are you worried? Always, but I'm also hopeful. Look at what we accomplished. We came back to a galaxy that feared us, hated us, wanted us gone. And we convinced them to give us a chance. Not through force, but through character. That's something worth being proud of. An alert suddenly sounded at tactical. Hyunwoo's voice was urgent. Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission from one of our outer colonies. New Busan, they're under attack. Jiwoo rushed to the bridge. Details. Unknown vessels, sir. Nothing in our database. They just appeared in orbit and started deploying ground forces. The colonists are defending themselves, but they won't last long. Mirai pulled up what sensor data they had. On the screen appeared an image of something massive. A construct 50 kilometers across, covered in strange symbols and surrounded by smaller attack craft. It didn't look like anything any galactic species had ever built. "What is that thing?" someone whispered. Science officer Nam Ji-young, who had been studying deep space anomalies for years, turned pale. "Captain, I think I know what it is. Remember those constructs I detected moving between galaxies? The ones I said wouldn't arrive for 50 years? Yes,